Good boy. You doing okay? You doing okay, little buddy? Shadow and I have come high up in the Santa Fe Mountains, and we are going to be exploring some ancient Native American dwellings. And with us is a good friend of mine, Brian, who 25 years ago, we did the same hike.
Crazy. And it's still here.
And we're still here. We have about 2.5 miles to hike on this trail right here. And it's going to wind in and out. And eventually we'll make ourselves to the top of a mesa where there's some really cool ruins. What do you see down there, little buddy? We are about, how high did you say, Brian? Close to 8,000 feet?
It's 7,400 feet.
7,400 feet in elevation. And this trail, it's like a switchback, back and forth. We've got to make our way down this side of the mountain and then up to the top of a mesa. But the scenery along the way is absolutely breathtaking. And I didn't mention this, but when I said the Santa Fe Mountains, Santa Fe National Forest, right?
Correct.
In New Mexico. About, what are we, about 2 hours north of Albuquerque?
Yes.
About 2 hours north of Albuquerque. Sticker, little buddy. Come here. Let's see that paw of yours. Did I get it? Yeah? Okay, good. Now, the geology here is fascinating. We're walking through predominantly lava stone. Rock from an ancient lava flow that covered sandstone, and that's how you get a mesa in this part of the country, is that the lava rock, the basalt, is harder than the sandstone that it covered. So imagine this was all one big flat plain covered with basalt, but then wind and water begins to erode. The sandstone below is going to erode much faster than the basalt above, and thus you end up with the stronger basalt holding together on the top until it's been eroded underneath it enough to where it then breaks and tumbles to the bottom. And over there you can see real clearly, you know, the red sandstone, what this area is. It was obviously once an ancient seabed. And here we go, the natural bridge. And you see this white stuff, that's tuff and ash that spewed out of the volcanoes into the atmosphere and then fell to the ground. And you can see ahead the sandstone. I'll tell you what, this is beautiful country. This is really beautiful country. And there's Shadow straight ahead. All right, little Shadow, we've made it across the natural bridge, and here is the beginning of the dwelling on top of this mesa. And you can see how difficult it would be to attack and how easy it would be to offend or defend. There's only one way to approach this. So this is one of the reasons why these dwellings were built on top of these mesas. And this isn't the only part of the world where that was done. I moved here from Ohio the southwest. I moved to the southwest, St. George, Utah, from Ohio. In Ohio, there are a lot of these examples. A good one, not far from where I lived, was called Fort Ancient, and it was a American Indian fortification built on top of an enormous hill, and the cliffs around the hill had been carved out by a river, so they were very difficult to scale. There was pretty much just one way in, and they built big walls around the top of this hill. It was impenetrable and easy to defend, and there were a number of those in that area, just like that. And in the ancient part of the world, you may have heard of Masada. King Herod had that built outside of the Dead Sea to be able to flee to. It was easy to defend, and in fact, during the Jewish revolt in 70 AD, about 850 men, women, and children fled and took refuge there. It took the Romans about 5 years to get them out. They couldn't get them out. Even with all the might of the Roman army, 850 men, women, and children were able to defend. There's only one way up, called the Serpentine Path. And all they had to do was shoot arrows down and drop rocks down, and that was it. You couldn't get up. So the Romans had to build an enormous ramp. And yeah, it's an incredible story. I would encourage you to research the story of Masada. And that wasn't the only fortification like that. People have built fortifications on top of hills and mesas for years and dwelt there. South America, the same thing. In Peru, and the Incas. So it's hard to live up here. You have to go down to get the water. You have to go down to get your crops, but you're safe. And after what we just went through hiking up here, I think we got the idea. It makes sense. So Brian, when was this built? Do you recall?
So they're talking early 1300s.
Early 1300s?
Yeah, they call it the village of Flaking Stone Mountain.
The village of Flaking Stone Mountain.
Yeah, and I don't know what, at one time there was up to 1,000 people that they gathered, that were here, that lived here.
Upwards of 1,000 people. And what's it called now? It's
spelled Tsi-p'in, and its English would be sipping.
Sipping.
Yeah.
Sipping.
Yeah.
What do you think, Shadow? I like it here.
See, and they used to grow stuff down there.
Let me get up there and take a look. So that's where they farmed, is down below?
Yeah, down below. I guess they'd hoof everything back up here.
Oh yeah. It's still being farmed to this
squash
day.
and whatever, and then you figure it's 1300 plus. They probably had a lot of game up here, a lot of life.
So they farmed below and brought their water up, their food up, wild game.
But I can imagine the winters were brutal.
Oh boy.
I bet they were brutal. I bet you that's probably why they left, or they got run out, or enslaved, or whatever.
It wasn't an easy time to live on this earth, was it?
Nope.
So right below, they still farm that area to this day. There's a stream, there's a couple of streams and springs below us. We crossed them on the way here. And that's good farmland. And this is safe, a safe, high, easy to defend dwelling. Other than the cold winters, this looked like a pretty good thing they had going here. I read a book once. The title is 1491, and it describes what the civilizations of the peoples that lived in North and South America were like prior to 1492. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So before Columbus arrived, what were the civilizations like? And they were very advanced. The Aztec Empire rivaled the Chinese Empire. Very sophisticated, multi-layered levels of an economy. Lots of travel. You had the Incas, the Mayans. You had the North Americans, and you find a lot of things in North America that was made in South America, and so forth. There was a lot of trade. It was very, very different than what we think of when we think of Native Americans, because along with white man came smallpox, and they estimate that smallpox wiped out 95% of the indigenous population of the North and South American continents. Now think of what that would do to us. You know, we have a very advanced economy. We are dependent on each other, and you know, we have specializations as they did. Now, over a very few short years, take 95% of us away. What are we going to do? And no more gas in the gas stations, no more cars rolling off the assembly lines, no more telephones working, there's no services anymore. There's no grocery store, there's no people to man them anymore. We would become tribal very quickly, band up with our family and neighbors, and form little tribes. And so the American Indians, both North and South America, when the Spaniards came, you know, what they encountered was the remains of what once were great civilizations. Just the tribal remains is all. And that's how we depict them. But that is not how they were. You know, you hear about the conquistadors. 300 conquistadors toppled the Aztec Empire with muskets that could barely hit the broadside of a barn. Are you kidding me? The Aztecs were a warring nation. They were fierce, and they were huge, and they were organized, and they were tough. They could have wiped out 300 conquistadors, except they'd already fallen. Disease had already taken that empire down. It was already disorganized and in disarray. So they were able to march in and pair up with a few of their enemies, and they basically were defenseless. It wasn't that the Europeans had cannons, and they had a few of those, and 300 muskets. That's nothing. It's that the Aztecs had already fallen apart from within because of smallpox. That's what conquered the Aztecs. It's a fascinating read, 1491. I highly recommend it. So the walls they built here, that's boulders of tuff. And we're now getting right into the housing, and the dwelling structures, and so forth. How they would have had, obviously, taller walls and doorways and roofs and fireplaces and all kinds of activities. You know, places of activity. These are the ruins. You know, they're in their ruined state. It's really, really cool that they're still here. Now look at that. They worked on this rock to make it into rectangular bricks. Clearly you can see that. These are not man-made concrete formed bricks. These are tuff. And tuff is not a real tough rock. It's not as hard as basalt. So you could form that, carve it down, and which is what they did. And then they could build nice, straight, organized walls. You know, going back to that book, 1491, some of the things I read in it, their abilities to do surgical procedures, like on the skull, be able to drill a perfectly round hole. We don't know how they did it. The Egyptians had that technology or skill, know-how as well as the Mayans and the Aztecs and stuff. They could do skull surgery. Yeah, here it's a little easier to see. There's still some walls standing. Look at the hole there, probably to hold a beam or a post or something. Look at the walls there, how they came to a perfect square. I mean, it's all tumbled down now, but at one time, I suspect this was quite spectacular. There's a lot of building material here. Well, the one thing you told me, Brian, these are the ancestors of the Pueblos, right?
Oh yeah.
And when
They are.
they are the Pueblos.
They are the Pueblo people.
And when a person would die, they would break pottery so they would have food to eat in the next life. And so you find broken pottery sometimes where there might have been a burial. Now, I'm not a pro in that area, so if any of you know more, feel free to comment or correct. There's some pottery right there.
It's all over here, Lance. Broken arrowheads and pottery.
You know, being the rock hound, I just can't help but check out, anything that looks like an agate. They worked all this. This is all worked. They all have very sharp edges, very sharp edges. These were all formed into tools. Look at that wall. And I assume those are some of the original timbers that would have held up roofs and doorways and so forth.
Somebody redid that wall. Somebody else.
And look how they worked all these stones into rectangles. So around what era or time period did they disappear or abandon this?
They're saying 1450-ish is when they they're just gone. I don't know. They don't know if they just left to go somewhere else, or they died of exposure or starvation, or they were killed by the tribes. Oh, that scared the hell out of me. Just jumping out.
This room is pretty much still intact.
I think they might have rebuilt that.
It even has a floor.
Modern folks rebuilt that. Oh, wow, the floor.
That's pretty cool. Now this is interesting over here. Now this was definitely formed. I'm wondering if this might have been like it's more of a central gathering place. It's pretty big. pottery pieces. There's pottery right there. Perfect pieces of pottery. They're really thin and nice. I bet they were beautiful jars and things. Here's some pottery. Look at that intricate design work on that piece right there. I don't know if this shows very well or not, but there's a
Yeah, look at that.
beautiful
That's really cool.
patterns inside and out. They were really artists. And agate, again, it's been sharpened. There's a term for that, Brian, and they kind of chip at it. There's a term of how they sharpen it. I forgot what it is. Look at that. It's been sharpened. These are beautiful agates. If I was out gathering agates, I'd be thrilled. That looks like it might have been a piece of a big axe or something. You know, axe head, sharp like that. You can cut with that so easily. But if I was out rock hounding somewhere, I'd be thrilled gathering up. But this is not a place where you should not rock hound here. Look at that. Look at all that color. Some of it agate, some of it pottery. So we're to start making our way back. It's really cool though. Really, really cool. Wow. That was definitely carved out as well. That's circular. So we have to go all the way through the mesa, and then over that natural land bridge, and then the trail takes us down along that flat spot, and then we got to zigzag all the way up that mountain, and we're parked up there.
Oh my God.
You can actually see where the trail, where they walked. A lot of feet have walked this spot. It's literally carved into the stone where they walked. Think of the thousands of feet that walked this path to carve that out. It's actually sad to think that something caused them to either die out or to leave. It's a sad story, whatever it is. I just feel it. Maybe. Thousands of feet walking over hundreds of years. I'd love to know the stories of some of those feet that walked these paths. I would love to know them.